So, this episode is part of a 10-ish message series commemorating the 10-year anniversary of when I first started my business back in the spring of 2013. Each message features a lesson or a story or something worth noting, a theme worth anchoring in from that particular year. Some are more life focused, some are more business focused, some cover lots of time, some cover very specific moments of time, and there's absolutely crossover because time travel is a thing in this retrospective mode where hindsight's 2023. Know that I would genuinely love to hear your feedback, any insights or questions that come up as you're listening. And I'm absolutely open to requests for future episodes to go deeper on any specifics that you'd love to hear more about. Just take a screenshot and tag me at Nikki Elledge Brown as you're listening, or hit the link in the comment box in the show notes and let me know. All right, here we go. We're going with deal or no deal as the theme for 2022 because the big headliner for me business-wise in 2022 was that I decided to pursue traditional publishing deal after years of thinking about self-publishing my first book. When my buddies were in town, and again, I will link to the more detailed podcast on this from the Naptime Empires episode in the show notes. But basically, my friend Jada asked me when she was here in Houston visiting me in the summer of 2021, she was like, do you think you haven't self-published and you're dragging your feet on it because you'd actually rather try traditional publishing first? And I was like, yes, actually, that feels true. It's true what you say. So I decided I would hire help with getting a book proposal out. I also bought a couple of courses on book proposals, and then I did nothing with them because I knew in theory, but also really practically speaking, that most publishers are not really going to be super interested unless you have huge numbers on your platform for your business, because the whole goal is to sell the book, right? And it's definitely easier to do that when you have a lot of people on your email list or your social media followings, podcast listens, and what have you. And so I decided to go for it. I'm like using all of my tools. What are the benefits of getting a deal? What are traditional deal, and what are the benefits of self-publishing? What are the drawbacks of a traditional deal, and what are the drawbacks to self-publishing? And I really wanted to be honest with myself. Do I want this? Also, am I okay if it doesn't happen? What would be my bare minimum of a deal that I'd be interested in taking? Blah, blah, blah. Because I'd already invested a lot of money in self-publishing, but then I didn't do it. But I think that was largely because I kept being like, I want to self-publish because it'll be faster. It was when I wrote the book, in 10 days, or when I wrote that first draft. That's definitely not the book. It was just the brain sneeze of the book. And it was helpful. Bless it. It was helpful. Every draft and tinkering and re-edit and shift and change has got me to the table of contents that I have now, which will be the table of contents for the book itself. I think that our family pup, Molly, may be about to start barking, but I'm just going to keep going and we'll see. We'll see if I'm correct here in a few minutes. Anyway, so I love that every iteration got me to the iteration that's going to finally be in your hands, eyeballs, earbuds, Kindle, and all of that here soon. But nonetheless, I kept telling myself I wanted to self-publish for the speed of it. And I'm like, yet here you are years later and you still haven't done it. So maybe that's not actually the thing. So I wanted to go with traditional publishing. Jada introduced me to her amazing agent for her She Builds book named David Fugate, who is awesome. I remember we had our nieces over swimming in the pool. It was it spring? I guess maybe they were home for spring break when I first got on the call with him, and we just hit it off right from the beginning, and he was excited about it. He believed in me and my voice and Naptime Empires, and he was super helpful in encouraging me to go for it and write the proposal. So that's exactly what I did over the course of a couple of weeks. And I did record some Naptime or On Her Terms podcasts around the creative process of the start stop, because I wanted to go all in, but then I couldn't because I needed to come home in time and blah, blah, blah. But that whole creative process in itself, just of writing the proposal, was really inspiring to me. And I was feeling good about it. And I also knew, okay, I have a petite platform from the outside looking in. I mean, my relationship Rolodex is a huge platform reaching people in the millions, but that's not obvious when someone's just Googling me, right? So I understood where I was, what I was bringing to the table, and put everything that I could into this proposal to really showcase in an authentic way what actually felt true. What is the marketing plan? Who is this book for? I love my table of contents. I had that pretty settled. I had been playing with that also when we were RVing. It was fun because I would actually send my draft to a local printer and then have a printed bound version, because it was easier for me to look at that and edit that and easily see that has nothing to do with anything and definitely doesn't need to be in the book, or, ooh, that's a good story, let's start with that instead of having it 4 paragraphs down or whatever. So I had still been working on the book little by little in 2021, but still hadn't published it. And that's hence the call out in the pool. All that to say, I also knew I needed to bring my site back to life because I had kind of boarded it up like, an abandoned warehouse or a house that has like plywood over the windows. That's kind of how I felt about my site. I just had a lead page, so you couldn't really see the site. I wasn't actively promoting anything on the front end. A lot of my clients were coming in through referrals, word of mouth, private DMs and conversations here and there. And then of course A Course About Copy funnel. And I noticed I didn't talk about my business in 2021, but basically business was asynchronous on demand situation. So basically I had Voxer VIP days, a few one-on-one clients at a time. I was tinkering and playing with the book draft. And then I had evergreen clients coming in through A Course About Copy, which I did not retire as I had originally intended to at the beginning of 2020. And a side note there is that I had bought a lifetime license for Hello Audio, which is the software making it possible for you to be listening to this right now. And I didn't use it until 2021 because I was putting all the core lessons from A Course About Copy into a feed. That was like my first time actually using it. And within 24 hours of me doing that, I listened to every one of the main A Course About Copy lessons just to make sure that they still felt timely and relevant. And then within 24 hours, as we were out on the road, I had a new A Course About Copy student sign up. And I remember I mentioned Mount Magazine in Arkansas in the last episode. I remember messaging back and forth with her to make sure she got the login okay and everything. So there were business activities happening in 2021, but it was all very go with our life flow, which is what I love. I do love having real-time commitments as well, hence Home Sweet Homeroom 2018. But it was also really beautiful to see how you could be off the grid doing whatever and still being able to connect and serve clients in pockets of time. So I was very thankful for that. Anyway, back to Deal or No Deal. So I'm refreshing my digital presence after having boarded up the windows. We brought my site back to life, making sure everything was functional because publishers were going to be looking at it as David was sending out the proposal. And then nothing. So there were lots of people that did actually request it. So basically you have the agent who then pitches to editors, and then editors may or may not request to actually see the proposal. And so there were several people interested in seeing the proposal, but no one interested in actually offering a deal. And I was in Hawaii with my family for about 4 weeks the summer of 2022 because Jeremy is still in the Navy. He's in the Navy Reserves now, though. So I've mentioned before, we get to kind of pick and choose how much time. It's at least 2 weeks every summer. Sometimes more, sometimes no, never less. It has to be 2 weeks. So we chose 4 weeks just to get to spend a lot of time over the rainbow, as we like to do, and visit with friends and people that we still know that still live there. And I remember processing it like, okay, that's a knock to the ego. It's okay. What if this doesn't happen? What is my ideal book deal? How can I own the traits of someone who would be, air quotes, worthy of a traditional book deal? I didn't want to get all my hopes up or have a fantasy of this is the only way that it has to happen or it's not going to happen, because I knew that wasn't true. I've had friends who have traditionally published. I have friends who have self-published. I have friends who have self-published and then traditionally published. And I know of people who have flip-flopped back and forth and then ended up going back to self-publishing because they actually just prefer it. So I know that there's not a right or a wrong or a better or a worse, but I also knew that if I left this stone unturned, I always would have wondered, was I just sitting myself out and binging myself if I didn't go for it? And again, I talk about this in more detail in Naptime Empires, and I can share even more in a future Naptime Empires episode, because this whole season I relaunched season 4 of the Naptime Empires podcast, and I called it Book Mode because I wanted to document getting it to the finish line so that it's out of my dock and you can actually do something with it instead of hearing me talk about it over and over in these podcasts. It really is a great book. I can't wait to share it with you. Anyway, so it wasn't happening. Meanwhile, there are other deals like listing the RV that did end up happening. But even after a couple of rounds, there just weren't any editors that were interested in taking the book on. And they were so kind. Like at some point, David was like, do you want to hear the feedback? Do you want to hear what they're saying? I was like, no, yes, no, yes, I do. Okay, fine, send it. So he sent it to me. And I can read you a couple if you're interested. So these are responses from people who actually read the proposal. So some, I really like the concept, the title. Nikki has a fresh and relatable voice on the page. I just worry her platform isn't quite at the level we need to really break this out in such a crowded category. She is impressive. I worry about the competition in this mompreneur space. Again, the crowded category situation. Nikki's energy is infectious. I love her encouragement to shoot their lives. I'm impressed with what she's built. She'll bring great support. And lots of people will, again, they're like so sweet because they know probably that he would send this to me. But no. Not quite right for our list. I know there's an audience for this, but I'm not sure we're the right publisher for her. I like her voice a lot and think it'd be quite helpful. But this particular person thought there have already been a fair amount of books on the cross section of entrepreneurship and motherhood. And I thought, that's interesting. I haven't read them. Like, I know there are some, but also the point of the proposal is to show what hasn't been done yet and how your book would stand out. And so the lesson for me in all of this, one, besides like it's humbling in a beautiful way, to me, it felt like confirmation, #on-her-terms, baby. It's time to just go all in, because the truth is I have a spreadsheet full of book ideas. Some are for adults, some are for kids. A lot of them are for the kids reading the books to, or adults reading the books to the kids, laptop style, like so that it literally goes over the kid's head. And also the adult is hearing what they're reading. You know how I love getting messages from children's books that actually feel like they're meant for me. So there's so many books that I want to create. And so it was 2022 that I was like, okay, it's not going to happen that way now, maybe ever. I don't know if I'll ever want to do a traditional publishing deal. We'll see. TBD, stay tuned. But for now, I know for sure that it's time to move forward, giving my own self a book deal, just like I wrote my own proposal, hired myself to write my proposal. It's time to just go all in on self-publishing and to see how the sausage is made. Because I remember when I first launched Naptime Empires, the podcast, I was like, it felt like such a big question mark, such a cloud and such a mystery. And I want to know, how does it, because some people write novels and they write like several a year, box kits, box sets. So I'm going to go in there. I'm going to dive in. I'm going to figure this out. And I can't wait to share it with you on the other side. I'm giving my own self a book deal. And the thing is too, I hope a message that you can take from this is that you'll never regret going for it and turning that stone. They may regret passing on you, but you'll never regret going for it and believing in yourself and learning something from whatever feedback you may get, whether you actually get feedback or just the no feedback is feedback in itself. If you are curious about something, then pursue it. If it genuinely means something to you, then pursue it. And also, if it doesn't work out, you get to choose the meaning that you make from it. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm deciding that it's the on her terms easiest way to publish my first book is to self-publish it. So that's what I'm going to explore. That's what we're going to talk about, because it is definitely a key theme for 2023. I'll meet you there. Okay, technically that was the end of the episode, but since you're still here, 1, I'd love to thank you for spending part of your day with me, and 2, I'd love to ask you if you would take 30 seconds, maybe 60, to leave a rating and review in your podcast app before you tap out today. If you've already done that, it's amazing. Please send me a screenshot so I can thank you personally, and know that sharing this episode with a friend has the same magical powers, and I deeply appreciate both. Also, in case you're listening to the end to see if I ever actually introduce myself, hi! My name is Nikki Elledge Brown. I'm the host and author of Naptime Empires and this here On Her Terms podcast. You can find me around the internet at Nikki Elledge Brown in most places, but what you may appreciate most is actually over at onherterms.com. It's what I call the insider library. It's where you can get inside scoop, first listen rights, email updates every time there's a new episode, and then special insider only bonus content. It's all over in our private feed. Okay, that's a wrap for real. I'll meet you in the next episode.